Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Health Confidential. I finally got one of the most requested guests. I've gotten so many DMs. And for those of you that are watching that follow me on Instagram, I know that many of you have messaged me privately and asked me to get Dr. Glidden on, and here he is. And this is the one and only Dr. Glidden from that very famous clip that I posted that went viral about chemotherapy. So we'll touch on that today. Dr. Glidden is a licensed naturopathic doctor that has over 3 decades of experience in holistic medicine. He has his own healing journey that he's going to share with us today. One of the most passionate advocates for natural healing that I've ever heard, because I've binge watched most of the stuff that's on YouTube of his. He also authored several books that and I'll say this politely, critique the conventional medicine, but we'll let him speak more about that. And he's probably one of the foremost promoters of naturopathic approaches to health and to healing. He emphasizes the importance of treating the underlying causes of illness. And he does so through diet, lifestyle changes, and of course, only natural remedies. And I think one of the most important things that he does is that he empowers individuals to take control of their health, and he offers them alternatives to pharmaceutical treatments and highlights the benefits of naturopathic care. Dr. Glidden, welcome to my show.
Simone, such a pleasure. It's always rewarding for me to be on a platform with like-minded people, especially like-minded people that have big followings, because everybody in the world needs to know what myself and my colleagues know. We've been in the middle, underneath the jackbooted heel of a medical monopoly for over 100 years. And a lot of what people have been taught, a lot of what people have been socialized to believe about how the body works, and, kind of in particular in medicine in general, is just blatantly wrong. So, I took an oath in 1991 when I graduated naturopathic medical school. And I take it very seriously. It was an oath to chip away at the rock of human suffering, to help people recover their health legitimately, honestly, and truly. And people suffer. I'm here to tell you, Simone, after 35 years of clinical experience now, most people who are suffering with a chronic disease are suffering needlessly, simply because of lack of information, which is a function of the medical monopoly that we've been in for over 100 years. People just don't know that there are legitimate, science-based, clinically verified alternatives to the MD method. And so every time I get a chance to stand up on somebody's hill and wave this flag, I'm happy to do it. So I appreciate your platform very much.
Oh, no, I don't think that you have any idea. Of course, I'm at about 80,000 followers, so I'm still a small fish in the sea, but you have no idea how much people love you.
Oh, well, that's
Everybody
very
has,
kind.
yes, they've messaged me to say, because I did mention that, oh, I'm actually trying to get him on my podcast. And everybody was asking, oh, can you ask him this? Can you ask him to talk about the 12 foods that he has a video on and that we shouldn't eat? And why doesn't he want us to eat this? And so we'll touch a little bit on that. But I wanted to start at the very beginning, because when I looked you up, you were back in 1987. You were actually a pre-med student. So you were on track for, yes, he's actually, for those of you that are listening audio, he's pointing to his diploma, which
Yeah, the
is,
University of Massachusetts. I went to the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, Massachusetts, in their pre-med department.
mhm.
So 4 years of pre-med study at the University of Massachusetts, ostensibly because I wanted to become an osteopathic doctor. And before World War II, osteopathic medicine was very different than it is today. Today, after World War II, osteopathic medicine, because of pharmaceutical maneuverings, has become more or less indistinguishable from MD-directed allopathic medicine. It's basically the same. But back in the day, the osteopathic doctors were very holistic in their approach, and they had a very unique system of physical manipulation of the body, similar to what chiropractors do, in order to upregulate people's health. And so I was all in with that. And that's why I did my pre-med studies. Okay. So, but I'll be very honest with you. One of my weaknesses is less and less so as I get older, but I was very naive back in the day. And I was very passionate and very determined. And once I had something, once I had a course of action, I would follow it. And I would kind of not look at anything else that was happening because I was just trying to reach the goal. So here I am, 4 years of pre-med education. I'm a senior at the University of Massachusetts, and I go to an osteopathic medical school in Maine, in Biddeford, Maine, for my interview, right? And I'm telling them about how excited I am to practice osteopathic medicine and learn the manipulation and the holistic underpinnings of osteopathy. And isn't this great? And the guy behind the desk was looking at me saying, well, we teach a little bit of that here. But in order for you to graduate and get your degree and your license, you're going to have to practice conventional pharmaceutical medicine in hospitals.
Oh,
And I had no idea because, again, I was naive. And so in the blink of an eye, 4 years of my life, I thought had just vaporized.
oh,
So I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I had no idea. And there's no way I can do that. I cannot do that. I cannot, I cannot ethically, morally, I cannot do that. So what am I going to do? I was crestfallen. So drive, it was about a 4-hour trip from where I was living and where I was going to school to where the interview was. The interview, I think it was in January. I'm driving back home and there's a blizzard, right? So I have to pull off the side of the road to find some no-tell motel somewhere in the middle of New Hampshire, I think. Spent the night, waited for the roads to clear, and was crestfallen and forlorn and, oh my God, what am I going to do? Finally got home and proceeded to get really, really sick.
oh,
I got really ill. I had all these digestive difficulties, couldn't keep anything down, really bad heartburn, diarrhea, nausea, couldn't eat anything, fevers and chills, losing weight, fevers and chills, losing weight. I was a mess for like 14, 21 days. I forget, it was 2 to 3 weeks. And
oh, wow.
I was living in the middle of, medical education central. If you threw a stick, you'd hit a doctor's office. And, of course, none of the medical doctors had any idea what was wrong for me. They couldn't help me. All they wanted to do was give me, could take an antibiotic and come back in a week. And it was like, all right, whatever. So, as fate would have it, and in retrospect, this is why this happened, right? At that time, this was 1987, there were 2 naturopathic doctors in the entire state of Massachusetts. One of them lived in Boston, which was a good 3 hours away, and the other one lived in the same town that I lived in. Or what are the chances of that? Now, I'll be very honest with you, Simone, because honesty is the best policy. I was an arrogant pre-med student. I thought I knew everything about everything, right? Because I'm a pre-med student. It's like big deal. So
That's how medicine works.
that's how medicine works. And, I'm here to testify. So I had no idea what naturopathic medicine was. I was sure the guy was a quack, but I had nothing to lose. Literally.
You literally thought he was a quack at that time because you had
Well,
studied.
because I'm an arrogant pre-med student. I don't know what
Oh, wow.
naturopathic medicine is.
Okay.
What is that? What is that? Somebody with Birkenstocks with waving incense around? I had no idea what it was, right?
That's usually
So
the.
I got nothing to lose. So I go to see the guy. I'm carried into his office because I've been in bed for like 14 days. I'm carried into his office. He lays me down on an exam table. He pokes around, draws some blood, I think, asks me a bunch of questions. And by the way, I immediately felt I immediately felt taken care of the minute that I walked in his office. He just had an aura about him. He was like an old-fashioned country doctor. And I immediately felt at ease when I was in his presence. And so he does a little exam. He asks me some questions and he gives me 2 pellets of a homeopathic medicine, 2 pellets in my mouth. Waits 5 minutes, nothing happens. I'll never forget it. I can picture this in my brain like it happened yesterday. He scratches his chin. He goes to the bookcase. He gets this big, thick book, puts it on the table. He might have dusted it off, I think. I don't know. He starts paging through it and he's asking me a bunch of other questions and he's paging through it. He's asking me more questions. Okay. Gives me a second homeopathic medicine, 2 little pellets, medicated pellets of homeopathic medicine in my mouth. Cost maybe 25 cents. Let me say that again. Cost maybe 25 cents.
Yeah.
As soon as that second medicine hit my mouth, I felt a thrill go through my body.
Wow.
I felt like a Venetian blind had been unrolled from my toes all the way to my head. And I immediately felt the urge to throw up. So I ran into the bathroom and purged this bilious, nasty sludge. A lot of it just spontaneously came up. And I was cured. Within 5 minutes, I was completely cured of a condition that I've been laboring with for, I don't know, 14, 15, 16 days. I was carried into the guy's office, literally. I walked out of it, went home, slept, I don't know, for a long time, like 18
17
hours,
hours.
and woke up the next day and
Good as new.
born again into naturopathic medicine. And February, March, April, May, June, July, August. 9 months later, 9 months later, I was a freshman at naturopathic medical school, and it was the best thing I ever did in my life.
Oh my goodness. So I'm curious. I mean, you're such a great storyteller. What was it that was ailing you?
Well, I had the Dr. Glidden disease, and that's a very important, this is a very important distinction to make. And whenever I say things like that, people think I'm being funny or I'm obfuscating or I'm tongue in cheek, and I'm not, right? So this is one of the things that's important for people to understand. Diseases are just names
That's
that medical
right.
professionals have given to things to make it easier for them to talk amongst themselves.
That's right.
But because of the medical monopoly that's been in place for over 100 years, and it's been a one-trick pony, you know, it's the only way that we know about medicine is through their lens. We have all been socialized to believe that illness is like a parrot that sits on your shoulder. It's a separate thing than you are, and it's the doctor's job to find a medicine that kills the parrot. And then everybody else who has the same diagnosis will get the same treatment. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Because, you know, there's no such thing as arthritis. I mean, could you bring me, 5 pounds of arthritis and let me treat that? You can't do that. How about a baker's dozen of asthma? I'd like a baker's dozen of asthma, please. You can't do it, right? There are people who have signs and symptoms which have been given names. So medical doctors practicing allopathic medicine treat disease, and that's why they fail. Holistic physicians treat people, and that's why we succeed. For example, I could have identical triplets, right? Exactly the same genes. They live in exactly the same house. They eat exactly the same food. They're exposed to exactly the same stress. They all have asthma, and they're each going to need a different treatment in order to recover. Because, they don't have asthma. They have an imbalance in their system that some medical professional is calling asthma. So we don't treat the disease because it doesn't, in point of fact, exist. We treat people, and there's a gigantic difference between the two. And that's why we succeed. Now, my illness was, I got 3 or 4 different diagnoses. They called it gastroenteritis, which is fancy schmancy doctor talk for an upset stomach, right? Um, Someone else said it's, influenza, which was incorrect. But in point of fact, I was so stressed by the stress of my interview and just thinking that I had wasted the last 4 years of my life. What the hell am I going to do now? It was that stress that threw my body off balance, and then my body became symptomatic. And it was the wisdom of the naturopathic doctor who was able to cure that. He was able to cure it. And let me say it again. Cure has become a 4-letter word, a dirty word in medicine. And that should make everybody very, 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 like open their eyes, like, oh my God. But especially with cancer, with any illness, medical doctors, your medical doctor may be the nicest person that God ever created. But your medical doctor does not practice medicine. They practice allopathic medicine. And allopathic medicine teaches its practitioners to manage the disease, not to cure it. So the blood pressure is never cured, it's managed. The migraine never cured, it's managed. The arthritis never cured, it's managed. The depression never cured, it's managed. Don't even get me started about cancer. The outcomes for cancer are so bad that 15 years ago, the American Cancer Society, and maybe it was longer than that, stopped even bandying the word cure about, and now it's 5-year survivability. So now in the wonderful world, the not so wonderful world of cancer treatment with conventional medicine, if you've been diagnosed with cancer and you die 5 years and 1 day later from that cancer, that's considered a successful treatment.
Just because of that 1 day past the 5-year mark.
Yeah, because it's a
Wow.
5-year survivability now is what all of the therapeutics are couched inside of, because they're horrible at what they do. Because the tumor is not the disease. The tumor is the result of the disease. So when you burn the tumor with radiation or dissolve it with chemo or surgically remove it, well, great. Guess what's going to happen? It's going to come back, because the tumor is not the illness. It is the result of the illness. And that's the problem with cancer. It comes back. Oh, it's in remission. Isn't that great? And everybody throws a party. And then 2 years later, it comes back with a vengeance and you die. But before you die, you go bankrupt and then you die from an absolutely positively ineffective, ass backwards, juvenile, dangerous, and expensive methodology brought to the table by medical doctors who have tunnel vision. If they weren't taught it in medical school, it's simply not true. And the only reason that this nonsense continues to exist is because of the medical monopoly that started with the Flexner Report in the early 1900s that most people today are completely unaware of. Have no idea that it even exists. So here we are. And, cancer outcomes are horrible, but that's the tip of the iceberg. Autism through the roof, Alzheimer's through the roof. Just as many people dying from heart disease now or getting heart disease now as 20 years ago. Arthritis, obesity, life expectancy getting shorter. The leading cause of bankruptcy is medical bills. This is not a good medical system. Bobby Kennedy's saying, oh, we're going to, stop having children eat processed foods, and that's going to help, the childhood illness epidemic, and bullshit. It's not going to. That's not the reason that kids are getting sick. That's not the reason that adults are getting sick. The reason that adults are getting sick and children are getting sick is because the medical doctors do not know what they're doing, period. The only thing that they're good for, and they're really good at it, and thank God, is trauma care. Military field medicine, the complications of childbirth, and perhaps dentistry, right? They're good at that, but they have no idea. They don't even know how to cure heartburn. So how good do you think they're going to be at curing anything else if they can't cure heartburn? And it's a travesty of biblical proportions. And the only reason that this type of mediocrity is allowed to continue to exist is because of a medical monopoly hiding in plain sight that nobody's aware of.
I had this one girl that I spoke with, and she was the first person that I worked with since I got on this path, and she made me cry. Pregnant, gets diagnosed with breast cancer, triple negative, they said, and they give her chemo while she was 6 months pregnant. Oh, my heart sank when I heard that.
No.
And then proceeded to take 21 lymph nodes out of her armpit and breast area, unilateral mastectomy on the left side. And now she was diagnosed with a secondary cancer. Surprise, surprise, because the lymph nodes in the clavicular area, I mean, even when I was speaking with her on Zoom, like swollen and inflamed. And I thought, there's nothing that, how do you drain from here now?
Yeah.
There's no more pathway for the lymph to drain into so that you can at least get
Yeah,
it
but the medical
towards.
doctors don't care. And the
No,
medical doctors who recommended those treatments and performed the surgery, they're sleeping soundly at night because in their, little pigeonholed brains, that was the best medicine that, science had to offer. And it's not. But for instance, there's a guy in India. His name is A.U. Ramakrishnan. For 30 years now, I think, he's been treating cancer just with homeopathy. That's all he does. He doesn't do anything else. No vitamins, no diet, no minerals, no amino acids, no herbs, acupuncture, nothing. Just homeopathic medicine. Here's his success rates. Bone cancer, 81% success rate. Brain cancer, 83% success rate.
oh
Breast
wow.
cancer, 86% success rate. Bladder cancer, 78% success rate. Cervical cancer, 76. Colon cancer, 67. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, 81. Larynx cancer, 81%. Leukemia, 74%. The hits keep on coming. Here's the book, A.U. Ramakrishnan, Cancer, My Homeopathic Method, which begs the question, with results like that, why isn't the, American Cancer Society like set up shop outside his office and learning what the hell he's doing? And then we've got people like Joe Tippins, right, who had cancer spread all throughout his body. He's got 6 months to live. He takes an anti-parasitic dog medicine and his cancer is gone. Gone, it's gone. So why isn't anybody researching that? Why isn't, Carnegie Mellon throwing $1 billion of research at that to try to figure that out? Because it's cured. It was gone. It was there. It's not there anymore. This guy's got success, remarkable success. Why isn't that being researched? I'll tell you why it's not being researched. Because a patient cured is a customer lost.
Tell us
Period.
the figures. So in this little reel that I shared on Instagram, you were giving the figures about the amount of money that is changing hands at that level between the insurance companies and the doctors, with the patient in the middle, and the exorbitant amount of money that the cancer industry is on the receiving end of, in the billions. We all know.
It's
If
billions. Yeah, and those numbers are always fed to an unassuming public. See if I can bring them up right now. Those numbers are always fed to an unassuming public as the cost of cancer, right? The cost of heart disease, the cost of obesity, the cost of type 2 diabetes, right? Whatever it is. And the last time I looked, if somebody's spending money, somebody's making money.
that's right.
So what those statistics more accurately should say is, well, since last year, the cancer industry, the medical industry that can't cure cancer, generated $208 billion a year in revenue. $208 billion a year in revenue. That's the money that they received from not being able to cure cancer. Number one. And number two, while the patient, or the human being, the person, was paying medical insurance premiums every month, which amounts to a small fortune over somebody's lifetime.
Absolutely.
They got sick. And nobody blames the doctor. It's the only industry like that. I mean, if you spent $50,000 on an automobile and a week after you had it, the transmission fell out and the engine caught on fire, you'd pitch a fit and you'd bring it back and you'd get your money back. But when people get sick, while they're under the care of the medical doctor, paying megabucks every month in medical insurance premiums, nobody criticizes. Nobody criticizes the doctor under whose care they got sick to begin with. And then, irony of ironies, the medical doctor has no idea what caused your problem. They have no idea how to cure it. So the heartburn isn't cured, it's managed. The arthritis isn't cured, it's managed. The infertility isn't cured, it's managed. Fibromyalgia isn't cured, it's managed. Depression isn't cured, it's managed. Nothing's cured. And everybody's okay with that. Oh, I love my doctor. I have the best doctor in the world. Well, I mean, your doctor may be the nicest person God ever created. But your doctor is trained in a system of medicine which is juvenile, expensive, dangerous, inconsistent with natural law, which is the first or the third cause of death in the United States, depending on how you crunch the numbers, and the leading cause of bankruptcy in the United States. So that's not a good track record. The medical doctors and the weather people on TV, they're the only people that can consistently get it wrong and still have a job.
Oh, that's so funny. But it's so true. It's actually true.
Yeah. Look, my profession does not have the answer to all human ailments. We do not. But you wouldn't believe the things I've seen people recover from. This is a very sophisticated, science-based, clinically verified methodology, which is consistent with natural law. And that's why we get results when everybody else does not. And I'm telling you, Simone, most people are suffering needlessly because they've been taking the wrong dog to the hunt for their entire life. They've been going to the medical doctors and the medical doctors and the medical doctors, and they're the wrong person to go to. You know, if you have a broken arm, go to the medical doctor. You're in an automobile accident and you're bleeding from your carotid artery, go to the medical doctor. You got a bullet in your arm, you get your leg blown off in Iraq, you go to the medical doctor. They'll save your life and they're good at that. But that's it. For everything else, the most important thing that I teach people to do, and people criticize me for it, but I don't care because it's the truth. The most important thing that anybody can do in order to secure their health moving forward is to fire their medical doctor and seek out alternatives, which are science-based and clinically verified, and lean on those. And that's why I'm here.
I posted something else the other day that actually speaks about what is in painkillers like Aleve and Advil and things of that nature. And they come from a tree. So if you look at allopathic medicine, it's actually rooted in natural medicine, naturopathic medicine, and everything that they have taken into a lab and made it into a synthetic chemical compound is
why they did that?
To be able to monetize it.
Yes, because, and here's where the knife gets turned. In the United States of America and Canada and the European Union, the only thing that can legally treat a disease is a drug. Let me say that again. The only thing that can legally treat a disease is a drug. And you cannot patent a naturally occurring substance. Like, you can't patent oxygen or orange juice. Can't do that. It's naturally occurring. You cannot patent it and hold the exclusive manufacturing and distribution rights to it. You can't do that. So when a medical doctor sees that there's a chemical constituent in a plant that has a positive, metabolic influence on the human body, they can't, well, they could, but they wouldn't make any money on it. But so what they do is they'll take that chemical, they'll extract that chemical from the plant, they'll alter it, they'll stick a hydrogen on it or a hydroxyl molecule on it, and they change it. So it's no longer something that's found in nature because they've changed it molecularly. Now they can patent that and they can sell the hell out of it. And that's what they do. And it's a travesty of biblical proportions. And it is the main reason the monopolization of the medical marketplace has led to these ridiculous things, like the only thing that can treat a disease is a drug. And the pharmaceutical industry is out of control. They have more money than God. They have more political influence than any other organization in the world. And we are basically all dancing to their tune, whether we know it or not.
So since you were a, and I haven't even started with, I really want to start talking about cancer because that's what my audience wants to hear most about. But so they patent something that they take from nature. Let's say they change the molecular structure even by one variation.
Mhm.
And then they obviously now they own the rights to it
Mhm.
and they're able to sell it to you. What happens physiologically? The body does not recognize that new, and but is it just that small distinction that they make to that particular compound that the body says there's nothing I could do with this, and if you put it inside me, it's gonna hurt me?
Side effects may include, right? That's why there's so many side effects to all of these pharmaceuticals, because it is a non-naturally occurring substance. The body has no evolutionary memory of being able to, interact with these substances, which is the wonders of the botanical medicines made from plants and medicines made from minerals, because the human body and Mother Earth are a cohesive unit.
Mm-hmm.
So the human body responds much more easily to a plant medicine or a mineral medicine because of Mother Earth, right? And we're all part of that ecosystem, whether you believe in it or not, you are. So that's why the botanical medicines work better. But you can't, patent it. Oh, and in order to dig the knife in a little deeper and turn it a little harder, in the United States of America and Canada, and I think the European Union, if you are selling like a vitamin or a herb or something, okay, and you directly or indirectly say that the use of that product will mitigate a disease, but that's illegal. And you can be shut down. And I have a colleague whose office was just raided 8 weeks ago by the Food and Drug Administration
Oh my God.
because he developed an antidote to the COVID jab. It's the only effective antidote I've seen. He figured it out. He developed it. He started selling it, and they shut him down.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you have no idea how bad it is, right? So
Yes.
this is why if you go to the health food store, it doesn't say arthritis fix on the label. It says bone and joint support. It doesn't say asthma RX. It says respiratory support. And if the Federal Trade Commission or the Food and Drug Administration gets a hair up their ass, they can just willy-nilly shut a nutritional supplement company down because the only thing that can treat a disease is a drug. And,
And
we
let's
need
not
to,
forget, we're not allowed to say, at least in my profession, I'm not allowed to say treat. I'm not allowed to say cure. I'm not allowed to say heal. And I'm not allowed to say do this. I cannot say go do this. I could, I would have to find a way to say it in a way that it's not me directly
yeah, but you know
advising.
what? I can because I have the letters after my name and I have the education.
Yeah.
And the license allows me a certain amount of latitude there. But you're absolutely right. You're handcuffed and, you're censored.
Even though my advice is always related to something that everybody does at least 3 times a day. They eat.
Yeah, yeah. So it's inside out, upside down,
And nonsensical.
yes, and done on purpose
Mm,
in order to keep the pharmaceutical industry on top. It is a
yes.
self-regulating, self-policing, jackbooted militaristic organization that has no regard for, you know, what's right, and they're not concerned with eliminating human suffering. They're not concerned with developing a cure for anything, although that's what they tell you on the evening news. Oh, a cure is just around the corner. Bullshit, it's not around the corner. A cure is already here. We have colleagues that are doing it. I've done it. It's
Yes. Speaking of cancer, I would love to go through your overarching view of it and maybe your guiding principles so that the audience can understand how you approach treatment for such a disease, especially in your capacity as a naturopathic doctor. So
well, how much time do you have?
I'm sure the audience is like, give him 5 hours at least, let him do a lecture. So I wanted to know how your philosophy on healing cancer, I'm going to say that word, healing cancer, because you are the one who helps people heal. How has that evolved over the years, especially since you started practicing and you've been
Well,
at it for
35
35
years. Yeah.
years? And what are some of the core principles that guide your approach to help patients navigate once they get their diagnosis, especially when that's when they're most scared?
Okay, so on my website, I have 13 questions that every cancer patient should ask their oncologist in the presence of a witness and a recording device.
Amazing.
And just simple, straightforward, polite questions. And if you ask these questions, you should ask these questions, by the way, to every practitioner that you are considering going to, whether it's a chiropractor or a naturopath or a homeopath or an MD, it doesn't matter. You
Mhm.
should ask these questions to the person that you are going to hire to help you get on the other side of any illness, especially cancer. Most people in this country, because again of the medical monopoly, they're railroaded into cancer treatment,
Mhm.
right? Oh, Mrs. Jones, we're sorry you've got breast cancer. Your lab results just came back. Um, we have you scheduled for Monday morning treatment. Please come into the office a couple of hours early. We have some legal forms we need we need you to sign, and we're going to set you up with treatment. The sooner you do it, the better. Most people ask more questions about the car that they're going to buy than the cancer treatment that they're going to just
That's so
jump right
true.
into. And that, again, is a function of the medical monopoly, right? And we've been socialized to think that the doctor knows best, the doctor knows best, the doctor knows best. And the doctor only knows what the doctor's been trained in. The doctor knows a little piece of the pie of medical science, but there's a gigantic amount of information your doctor is completely clueless of. And more's the pity. So, number one, those questions are important to ask.
Give us a couple of examples, please, so that the audience can maybe go armed with a few under their belt.
All right. Question number one, what caused my cancer? Doctors don't know what causes cancer. And if they tell you that it's genetic,
That's the first thing they're probably going to say.
you want to say, okay, which gene on which chromosome?
I love it.
And why wasn't it, if it's genetic? I mean, the color of my eyes is genetic, my sex is genetic. So why didn't I have cancer when I was born? I don't understand. Right? So most people, because of the educational system that has existed here in this country for over 100 years, most people are just not smart. They're extremely undereducated. So when most people hear someone with a white coat and a stethoscope around their neck, sitting in an office in the middle of a hospital with millions of dollars of high-tech equipment around, and that doctor says your condition is genetic, most people cower in intellectual fear. Oh, it's genetic. Thank you, doctor. Thank you very much. I had no idea. Thank you, doctor. You're so smart. It's not genetic. Saying that your illness is genetic is like saying, well, I know what causes tornadoes. Tornadoes are horrible. Tornadoes destroy property and kill people, and they're unstoppable, and it's horrible. And well, I know what causes tornadoes. It's sunlight. You can't have a tornado without a cloud. You can't have a cloud without water vapor. You can't have water vapor without sunlight. So it's sunlight that causes tornado. It's genetics that cause cancer. It's genetics that cause everything. It's a ridiculous argument, which falls apart on, just a eeny weeny teeny bit of academic scrutiny. I'll give you an example of it. I kind of have to digress here, but I have a colleague who I learned most of my medical nutrition from. He was in charge of a $25 million research project in the 80s. And when he was doing that, he was working at Yerkes Primate Research Center in Atlanta, Georgia. And he discovered the cause and the cure for cystic fibrosis. Let me say it again. He discovered the cause and the cure for cystic fibrosis, and he proved it. And they fired him because of it. And here's what he discovered, which went against the academic grain, because as far as everybody was then and is now concerned, cystic fibrosis is genetic, and you can't alter a genetic disease. But he discovered that cystic fibrosis was caused by a deficiency in the trace mineral selenium in the blood of the pregnant mother. If there wasn't any selenium in the developing monkey baby's body, genes became mutated and cystic fibrosis was the result. But it wasn't a genetic thing. Well, everything in the body is controlled by genes. It was a mutation of a gene caused by a deficiency in selenium. It was called a epigenetic disease. It's not a genetic disease. It's an epigenetic disease. It's a stress to the genes from an environmental source, or in this case, the lack of a nutrient. So you give the mother monkeys a diet high in selenium, no more cystic fibrosis baby monkeys. You remove the selenium from the mother monkey's diet, and the babies don't have any selenium. They all get cystic fibrosis. He proved it, and they fired him.
Oh, my God.
Because it's got to be genetic. What are you talking about? A mineral? What are you talking about? Medical nutrition? What is that? You're fired. So he's considered, by the way, the father of epigenetics. And let's talk about the BRCA gene, right? Every woman with breast cancer knows all about the BRCA1 and the BRCA2 genes, because those genes are responsible for breast cancer. Bullshit, they are not. There's no such thing as a BRCA1 or a BRCA. Well, the BRCA1 and the BRCA2 genes that cause cancer are mutations of the BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes. You know what those genes do in their unmutated healthy state? You know what they do? They fix gene mutations. But every breast cancer patient in the world doesn't know this. And they should. The BRCA1 and the BRCA2 genes are not healthy, normal genes. They're mutations of genes, which begs the question, you would think, a reasonable, rational physician who dedicated themselves to healing disease, you would think that the next obvious question would be, well, what caused the gene to mutate? That's a good question, but it's not asked. Why? Because a patient cured is a customer lost. And it's not inside this paradigm. It's genetic. It's got to be genetic. It's got to be genetic. There can't be any, it's genetic. You were born with it. Can't be the doctor's misunderstanding. It's the patient's fault. Can't be the doctor's lack of understanding of how the human body works. It's the patient's fault. You've got the bad gene. It's your fault, not the doctor's fault. Shut up and let me cut your breast off. That's how it goes. But I digress. So, in order to understand what to do to help somebody who's been diagnosed with cancer, we have to start at the beginning. And the beginning is, if you're a medical professional, if you're a doctor, you need to have a working definition of health. There's a good place to start. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you really want to have fun with the medical doctor, The next time you are unlucky enough to be in their presence, you ask them to define health and watch their head explode because they can't do it. They haven't been trained in it. They don't think about it. They have no idea what the hell you're talking about. So in order to help somebody be healthy, right, to help somebody recover from a disease process, to help somebody recover their health, you have to have a working definition of health. And that's where we start. And so here's Dr. Glidden's working definition of health.
All right. So that's exactly how you're supposed to start. Even if they don't give you any kind of diagnosis, let's say they just want to put you on a statin or some other crazy medication just to be able to make money off you continuously, still ask them.
Yeah,
Please
you have
define
to
health for
ask
me.
these questions,
Mhm.
right? And they won't be able to answer them. And then it's kind of like, you know, you're Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, and they pulled back the curtain, and there it is. He's not a medical deity like you thought he was. He's just some guy who knows this much. So health is the ability of a living organism to experience stress and remain symptom-free in a state of dynamic equilibrium. And here's what I mean by that. The fundamental difference between the naturopathic approach and the allopathic MD approach is that the MD approach is atheistic and does not believe in anything metaphysical, does not believe in anything spiritual, does not believe in any of that at all, period. The soul is a fiction, the spirit is a fiction, life after death is a fiction, God is a fiction, there's no vital force, period, it does not exist. Consciousness itself is a function of biochemistry. And when the body dies, consciousness dies, it's lights out, game over. That's it. That's what they think. That's what they're trained to believe. Holistic physicians like myself are trained in an opposite belief. The body is inhabited by a spiritual essence, which is intelligent. Our bodies are so smart, they grew themselves all by themselves into us. And right now, our bodies are orchestrating billions of biochemical processes at a cellular level, all of which are completely beyond our conscious control. How is this possible? Because the body is inhabited by an intelligent spiritual force which is running the show. Our bodies know how to fix themselves. They want to fix themselves. The body's trying to fix itself all the time, but it needs help. And this is also why the body decomposes after it dies. What happens when the body dies? Well, Elvis leaves the building. The spiritual force is no longer there. It's the spiritual force that was keeping everything together and running the show and enervating the show. It's the same biochemicals 1 second after death. So why does the body decompose? It's because the spiritual force is gone. It's left. It's not there anymore. And it was running the show. So the fundamental naturopathic belief, and not just naturopathic, but of all holistic systems of medicine, the body knows how to fix itself. The body wants to fix itself. The body's trying to fix itself because it's inhabited by a spiritual force, but it needs help. We need to drink water. We need to breathe air. We need to eat food. We need to put warm clothes on when we go out in cold weather. There's things we need to do to help the body. So here's how it goes to complete my little definition of health, and then I'll give you the nuts and bolts of, you know, what we do for cancer or people diagnosed with cancer. Because remember, we don't treat cancer. We treat people. So life is a great big bowl of stress. There's all kinds of stress. Mental stress, emotional stress, physical stress, political stress, financial stress, microbial stress, weather, aging, crap in the air, crap in the water, crap in the food, right? Bad doctors, it's all kinds of stress, right? When a stress hits the body, there's only two possible outcomes. The body will defend it, and the stress will bounce off and nothing happens. It's happening all the time. Your body's fighting stuff off right now you're completely unaware of. The second thing that can happen if the stress is too much for the body is the stress gets through our defenses, destabilizes the body, and the body compensates and generates a symptom. So the weather changes in the autumn. The body can't handle that stress. There's too much mucus in the upper respiratory tract. The body becomes destabilized by the stress, and you develop a fever, chills, sore throat, and muscle aches, and a cough. Okay? Then, if you're healthy enough, and most people are, the self-healing mechanisms of the body kick in. The body reestablishes balance. And when the body reestablishes balance, what happens to the symptoms? They're gone.
They go away.
Yeah. There's no more fever. There's no more chills. There's no more cough. It's gone. And you cut your finger, right? You're symptomatic. And the body fixes it. And the cut's gone. It's gone. It's not there. It's gone. The body fixed it. Because it has the capacity to, and it wants to. But every once in a while, and more and more and more these days, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Here's what happens. We'll get stressed by something. We'll get destabilized. We'll become symptomatic. And then we get stuck. The body can't fix it. This is why people go to the doctor. Because they got symptoms. I got excruciating migraine headaches. I've got really bad eczema. My 9-year-old child has asthma. Can't breathe. Right? There's a strong and persistent symptom. Okay, so now people go to the doctor. But in, the industrialized nations of the world, the only doctor that can legally, that we have access to, are the MDs. So the MDs, what do? They throw a drug at it to suppress the symptom. You get an antibiotic, an antidepressant, an antacid. It's my least favorite medicine in the world. You get a MAO uptake inhibitor. You get a proton pump inhibitor. You get a serotonin reuptake inhibitor. You get a drug that suppresses the symptom. Okay, well then what happens? Well, the symptom, even though it was uncomfortable, and in some cases dangerous, it was what the body was doing to compensate for being destabilized. So now you eliminate that, the body must fall further off balance and develop another symptom. It has to happen, and it happens all the freaking time.
Or 5 more symptoms for that matter.
Or 5 more. And then, in addition to that, side effects from the drugs, right? So nothing gets cured. Everything gets managed and suppressed. And the older the people get, the sicker they get, the more dependent on the drugs that they get, and then they go bankrupt and then they die. And I'm the quack. So here's what holistic doctors do. Instead, we're stressed, we're destabilized, we're symptomatic, we're stuck. Every holistic doctor in the world, I don't care if it's an acupuncturist, I don't care if it's a chiropractor, I don't care if it's a naturopath, I don't care if it's a homeopath. We are all trained through different methods to push the body back into a state of balance. Chiropractors do it one way, acupuncturists do it one way, naturopaths do it one way, homeopaths do it one way. Every holistic discipline, medical school of thought in the world has their own unique ways of pushing the body back into a state of balance. Because what happens when the body recovers balance? The symptom goes away. It disappears. It's not there anymore. The tumor goes away. The constriction in the lung goes away. The cyst on the kidney goes away. The enlarged heart goes away. The blood pressure normalizes. The eczema goes away. We call this a cure, which has become a dirty word. We're not supposed to talk about a cure. I wrote 2 books. My second book, which was banned by Amazon, was called Attempt to Cure. I guess they didn't like that. But nonetheless.
Because it had the word cure in it? And
I don't know why. Who knows? I was just kicked off of TikTok last week. Who knows why? I have no idea why. I don't know. It's all censorship, bullshit, nonsense. I'm a licensed physician. I have 35 years of clinical experience. People should be putting me on the CBS Evening News and having me tell my story. But instead, it's censorship. It's censorship. It's censorship.
I bet you that if you were to go to CBS and say, I want to tell everybody how I healed one disease or something that I was ailed by taking a statin, they would probably give you
Yeah.
like prime time.
Well, and that's because, I mean, all you have to do is look at with mainstream media, you know how many commercials are for
Oh,
pharmaceuticals?
yes. Ask your doctor.
So they, you know, that the media is owned by the pharmaceutical industry, so they're not going to have any type of advertising or any type of messaging which questions or goes against the pharmaceutical motive. And look, as a naturopathic doctor, here's a fun fact to know and tell. I can prescribe drug. It's not the drug, it's how it's used. Every time I'm in the dentist chair, I thank God for lidocaine. It's like, yeah, I'll take some more of that, please. Thank you very much. But I've in 35 years of clinical experience, I prescribed one drug one time to one patient. And in retrospect, I wish I didn't do it. I didn't
Which
know
one?
what it was
Which
an
one was
antibiotic.
that?
It was an antibiotic for
Antibiotic.
Lyme disease. And it was a stupid prescription. But you know, that's why it's called the practice of medicine, because we learn things, hopefully, as we go.
You're practicing. Tell us about the books. That was going to be my next question because I know that you authored three in
No, two,
particular.
just two. The one that you can still get. Well, there were three, but there's actually only two because the first book I rebranded.
The MD Emperor Has No Clothes.
Yes, that was the very first book I wrote. It was called The MD Emperor Has No Clothes. But nobody knew what the hell that meant. So, like 4 years after I published it, I changed the title to Everybody is Sick. And
And
I
I
know
know
why.
why.
It's the same book.
Well,
And
because
that,
in the MD Emperor Has No Clothes, you were critiquing the influence of big pharma on healthcare.
oh, yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
actually literally encouraging readers to seek alternative treatments and for them to take control of their health.
Yeah. I encourage people all the time to fire their medical doctors. It's the most important progressive thing you can do for your health is to just put your medical doctor in the rear view and educate yourself about alternatives that actually work. And, you know, it's not hard to do. And this is one of the things that we've been socialized to believe that medicine is a complicated thing that only the eggheads with the pencil caddies and the 4.0 GPAs, it's only those guys and girls that can figure that out. Yeah, and that's a lie. If you're smart enough to pass the driver's license test, you're smart enough to learn what to do to help your body fix itself.
Oh my goodness.
And that's
That's
why I exist.
that's why everybody loves you. I mean, I know this is supposed to be a serious interview, but the way you describe everything,
Yeah.
I mean, the truth is so true. No truer truth is being told by any other doctor than you right now, but it's still funny. I love your style. Everybody loves your style, and that's why everything I've posted of yours has like is viral on Instagram.
Well, I'll tell you why. Nobody's ever asked me this, but I'll tell you. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out, right? If you sat behind my desk for 1 week and you saw the massive, unnecessary amount of human suffering that has been created by medical incompetence and the medical monopoly, you'd be heartbroken. So the way that I deal with that is with humor. Because if I wasn't being funny about it, I'd be in a corner curled up in a ball weeping for humanity because it's bad.
It is.
And as bad as people think it is now, you know, after everybody's waking up because of all of the COVID BS,
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, it's 1,000 times worse. It is really bad. Your medical doctor is the wrong dog for this hunt, and you need to fire them immediately and seek out alternatives that are effective. And they're not that hard to find. And on my website, right, I have hundreds of hours of instructional videos that walk you through what to do.
Yes.
Because I don't want patience. I don't want to give somebody a fish. I want to teach them how to fish. I want students. This is not that difficult to learn. It is not that difficult to learn what to do. It's not. You've been fooled by the pharmaceutical industry into thinking that medicine is a super complicated. It's not. Surgery is complicated. I don't recommend you surgery your sister or your wife or your husband. But learning what to do to recover your health, pretty easy. And I line it all up for people on my website, which I hope everybody goes to.
I'm sorry, that was so funny. I'm still laughing at it. Don't practice. Don't do any surgery on your brothers or your sisters.
Well, yeah. Okay.
Um,
Okay. So here we are. Like, let's roll it back to so now we have a definition of health, right? So we know what to
right.
do. So what are so what are we going to do? Well, so there's four things that everybody needs to do, regardless of what your diagnosis is. And then I'll tell you what my specific recommendations are if people have been diagnosed with cancer. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. And remember, this is all based upon the foundational belief that the human body knows how to fix itself. It wants to fix itself. It's trying to fix itself. Okay. But it needs help. So, step number one, you have to stop eating food that's hurting you. You have to stop putting diesel fuel into an unleaded engine, right? If you do that, the car's not going to run. So there are 12 foods that myself and my colleagues have identified as being bad for you. Here they
Yes.
are. You need to stop eating these foods: wheat, barley, rye, and oats. Any grain that has gluten in it, you need to stop eating it. Organically grown, non-organically grown corn, non-organically grown soy. It's GMO corn or GMO soy, or corn or soy that's been grown with pesticides, with herbicides, the herbicide glyphosate. You can't eat those. Those will kill you. And the World Health Organization even says that. So I'm not alone in that.
Mhm.
Um, Processed meat, like deli meat, deli salami, deli ham, deli turkey, the meat that has nitrates added to it as a preservative. You need to stop eating those because those will hurt you. Here's one for the record books that makes everybody's head explode. And this goes to the misinformation that you've been fed, pun intended, for your entire life. Oil in a bottle, including olive oil. You need to not eat it because it will hurt you. A carbonated beverage with a meal, even if it's Perrier, if it's got bubbles in it, the bubbles will neutralize stomach acid. So don't eat or don't drink anything that has bubbles in it during a meal. You can have that between meals, but not during a meal. Red meat that's been cooked well done. If you're going to eat red meat, you have it rare or medium rare. Don't even be downwind of fried food. If all you did was stop eating fried food today, you would probably add 5 years to your life expectancy. Fried food is a big bad voodoo daddy, and you need to stop eating it. And the last thing is the skins, the crunchy, crispy skins of baked potatoes, baked yams, or baked sweet potatoes. Now, on my website, I have a 45-minute video that tells you why these foods are bad, right? I walk you through why all of these foods will hurt you so that you can, I don't want you to just trust good old Dr. Glidden. I want you to learn a thing or two. And so on my website, I walk you through what to do, why these foods are bad. Okay, this is academic, by the way. You can't argue this. This is like, you know, so number one, you got to clean your diet up. Period. If you do not want to do this, then suffer and die. I don't care. But the rest of the stuff that you do is going to be inconsequential, or it's going to be 3 steps forward with the herbs or the vitamins, and then 3 steps backward because you're eating all the wrong food all the time. Okay, number two, there are 90 essential nutrients that the human body needs. An essential nutrient is something that the body needs it, but it can't make it. So there are 60 minerals that the body needs, like calcium and sulfur and zinc and phosphorus, selenium. 60 minerals, 16 vitamins. Everybody knows vitamins. vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin C, whatever, right? 16 of those, 12 amino acids, and 2 fatty acids, omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, for a grand total of 90 essential nutrients. The only problem is these nutrients the body needs in order to work, but they're not in the food. Not all of them. And there's less and less and less and less and less and less of them in the food over the last 100 years. So here's my invisible nutritional tank, right? If for you, what your body needs in order to work the way that nature and God intended it is 90 essential nutrients, here's how many you have, less than half. Less than half. And then the stress of life comes rolling in. The stress of life burns through your reserves, and then things start to break. So you don't get high blood pressure because you have a bad gene. You get high blood pressure because you ran out of calcium and magnesium. You don't get asthma because you have a bad gene. You get asthma because your body has run out of omega-3 and omega-6 essential fats. You don't get migraine headaches because you're getting a divorce. You get migraine headaches because your body has run out of omega-3 essential fats that it needs to make prostaglandin, and so forth and so on. All chronic disease is directly related to nutrient deficiencies, period. Let me say that one more time. All chronic disease, without exception, is directly related to nutrient deficiencies.
So that includes cancer, right?
100% includes cancer.
I'm so happy you said that.
So you have to fill this tank up. You have to give the body everything that it needs in order to fix itself, right? I mean, your car needs oil. Your car needs 8 quarts of oil. If your car only has 2 quarts of oil, the engine's going to seize, catch on fire. There's nothing wrong with the engine, ran out of oil. Your tires need 35 pounds of air in them. Well, if they have 10 pounds of air in them, the tire's going to roll right off the rim when you go around the corner. Nothing wrong with the tire, needed more air. It's the same with the human body. You got to put the right fuel in the tank, or in this case, stop putting the wrong fuel in the tank. You got to fill the body's nutritional reserves. You got to do that. That's mandatory. It's not optional. And there's these are the initial 2 things to do. Now, once you've done these 2 things for 90 days, then we can detox the body. Once a year, you should do like a 60-day detox. And 4 times a year, you should do a kill the parasite program. And I have a full moon parasite cleanse, which is freaking fantastic. The most effective kill the parasite program I've seen in 35 years of clinical work. We do it on the full moon, the day before, the day of, and the day after the full moon.
Why in line? So why aligned with the moon?
Because the parasites are more active during the full moon.
Oh.
Right? That's the problem with parasites, is they'll go dormant. They become stealthy. They go into the background, and it's hard to kill them. But when they're out and about doing things, it's easy to kill them. And they're out and about doing things during the full moon. But sometimes during the new moon as well. But so that's why. So these 4 things are considered the foundation of health. And here's something that you're probably just going to find hard to believe, but it's the truth. Over the last 10 years, we've tracked 10,000 people who have done this. They clean their diet up. They fill their nutritional tank up. That's all these people did. They didn't do the detox, and they didn't kill the parasites. All they did was stop eating the 12 bad foods and fill their nutritional tanks up with the right stuff. 87% of them recovered their health, whatever it was, 87%. That means 13% did not, right? So 13%, this generic stuff was not enough. Those 13% needed a private appointment with someone like me in order to do the rest of it and have them crest the hill and get healthy. But just these 2 things, clean your diet up, take the right nutritional supplements, 87% of the time was Shazam, right? Migraines go away, the infertility goes away, the obesity goes away, the asthma goes away, the kidney disease goes away. It goes away. Why? Because it can. So these are the fundamental foundations that have to be in place in order for you to attempt to cure whatever it is that you're suffering with. That makes sense?
Perfect. Couple of questions only because my followers on Instagram were all so surprised that you said that oatmeal is bad for you, or
Yeah.
that olive oil, which is a staple of the Mediterranean diet, is
Yeah.
bad for you and you shouldn't eat it. So
Yeah.
I promised them that I would ask you. So tell us why.
Okay. So the Mediterranean diet is a myth. The Mediterranean diet was developed by a medical doctor named Ansel Keys after World War II. And Ansel Keys went around the Mediterranean and he had an agenda. Um, and he did not do an objective discovery of the facts. And, you know, it was after World War II. Everybody was in shock and he wasn't getting clear and concise answers from people. So it was because of his bad research that olive oil populated into, you know, became a part of the popular culture. And it is true that in the Mediterranean, the people that live on the coast have a statistically significantly higher life expectancy than anybody else.
That's right.
It's also true that the people in Sardinia lived the longest of anybody in the Mediterranean.
Yes.
And you know what the difference between the Sardinians and everybody else was?
They weren't consuming olive oil.
They hated it. They considered it, you know, they called people that ate olive oil greasers. So they didn't eat olive oil and they lived longer than anybody else. Why is this? Because any oil that's in a bottle oxidizes because in the top of the bottle there's air.
That's right.
And the air will oxidize, or the oil becomes oxidized. And as the oil becomes oxidized, um, it creates free radicals, which cause inflammation. So when you drink it, you're introducing inflammatory biochemicals into the body. When you cook with oil, especially in like superheated oil in a fryer, there's a really nasty chemical that's created by the heating process called acrylamide, which is carcinogenic. And there was a Harvard guy named Lucien Lepage, and he did a map of the United States. This was like 30, 40 years ago. And it was a life expectancy map in the United States of how long people lived in every county in the United States. And the map was color coded. And in his map, the red counties were the shortest life expectancies of anybody in the world. And all the old Confederate South was all red because the shortest life expectancies in the United States is in the South. Why is that?
Because they eat deep fried foods.
Fried food's a religion in the South.
That's right.
And that's the holdover from slavery. But yeah, so that's why olive oil is bad. Now, oatmeal, if you think oatmeal is good, then all you have to do is spend a week in Scotland and see how unhealthy everybody is. It's a very unhealthy country. Oats contain a protein called gluten, and this is why we prohibit wheat, barley, rye, and oats because of the gluten. It's the gluten content in these grains. And gluten is a protein which is really, 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 really hard for your stomach to digest, your stomach acid. Now, most people have weak stomach acid anyway because they're on salt restricted diets. And if you're on a salt restricted diet, your stomach acid will be weak, and that's what causes heartburn. Heartburn is not caused by too much stomach acid. It is impossible for the stomach to create too much acid. It is physiologically impossible for that to happen. Heartburn is caused not by an excess of stomach acid, but by a deficiency in stomach acid. Deficiencies in stomach acid are driven by deficiencies in salt and deficiencies in calcium. But I digress. So you eat a grain that's got gluten in it. Gluten is a protein. A protein is a bunch of amino acids that are daisy chained together like a string of pearls. And it's the stomach's job to break that chain and liberate the pearls, which are the amino acids. They're essential nutrients.
Mhm.
But because of weak stomach acid and because of the tenacity of the gluten molecule, it's virtually impossible for your stomach to break those pearls, to break that string of pearls. Can't do it. So instead of having individual amino acids tumbling into the small intestine, which is the next step in the digestive cascade, you have this intact string of pearls. And as that rolls through the small intestine, it damages the tissue in the small intestine whose job it is to absorb food. So the gluten protein damages the tissues in your digestive tract, which are responsible for absorbing things. So the more wheat, barley, rye, and oats you eat, the more affected your digestive tract becomes and the harder it is for you to absorb nutrients. And who benefits from that situation? The pharmaceutical industry. Because remember what I said, all chronic disease is directly related to nutrient deficiencies. So when you eat these foods, one of the side effects is that your body's ability to absorb things is compromised. So even if there's 100% nutrients in your food, which there isn't, you're only going to be able to absorb this much because you've been eating whole grains, because your doctor told you to. You see where I'm going with this? Now,
Is there a grain that any, like, let's say quinoa? Is there
yeah, if it's not wheat, barley, if it doesn't have gluten in it, then go for it.
so gluten-free grains are okay?
Oh, yeah, I just had a gluten-free bagel for lunch and it was freaking delicious. Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah. So we have, now there are some people, there's a small subset of people that are intolerant to grains. Doesn't matter if they've got gluten in them or not. There's a small subset of people, they just shouldn't eat grain.
Mhm.
There's a small subset of people, they shouldn't eat cow's milk. Shouldn't do it. So these foods, however, are generic and nobody should eat them. Nobody. This is generic. And in addition to this, there's like, for instance, with me, I'm intolerant to cow's milk. And if I have milk or cheese or butter and my upper respiratory tract gets all congested and clogged up and I'm not happy. I have other patients, they can't tolerate potatoes, any kind of potato. They can't do it. All right. So there are certain foods that certain people will also have trouble with, but these nobody should eat.
How do you
So
establish, Dr. Glidden, how do you establish when somebody has an intolerance? Do you run a blood test for them to be able to have the markers, or do you just gauge it by them telling you, Dr. G, whenever I eat this, I feel this?
that's the best way to do it
Okay.
because the blood testing it's not the most accurate in the world. I'm suspicious of the food allergy blood testing.
Yeah, tell us about that because I tell people too when I work with them, I say everything that gets captured in a blood test gets captured as to what's happening in the moment when the blood is drawn from you.
Yeah, that's correct. And also for any type of diagnostic test, there's something called a sensitivity and a specificity,
Hmm.
which is how accurate is the test. Like the PCR test for that they were rolling out during COVID, extremely inaccurate. Nobody talked about that. I talked about it. You could do the 10 PCR tests one after the other, and then one person you get 5 positives and 5 negatives. It's a bullshit test, and it was not meant to be a diagnostic test in the first place. But that's a conversation for another time.
Oh, that, I mean, the amount of people that were making videos on social media about where they were sticking this test and what kind of results they were getting. I mean, they were like putting it in fruits and other orifices of the body just because they wanted to see. And like mangoes were getting positives, like COVID positive. And it was hilarious. It was hilarious.
Yeah, again, this brought to you by the medical monopoly, right? That's the only reason that nonsense like that could exist is inside of a self-policing, self-regulating monopoly.
Hmm.
And we desperately need a free medical market. That's the solution.
I
Bobby
really hope.
Kennedy says he wants to, end chronic disease epidemic. Great. Let's have a free medical market. That'll end it. Because my colleagues and I know how to fix this stuff. We know how to do it. We've been doing it for 100 years. We're not perfect at it, but we're really good at it. And we should have been invited to the table. I have colleagues that had 100% success with COVID patients, and they didn't use ivermectin. 100% success rate. You would think they would have been invited to the table. They're licensed physicians. But no, 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 no. Can't have the naturopaths talk using that cure word. Can't do that.
Not that I want to go in any political direction, but what you said was so important. So I would love for you to repeat it. This is before we started rolling. So you said that Bobby Kennedy Jr., who is now obviously in the political arena leading up to the elections in November, he vowed to clean up healthcare. But the way that he's doing it, please explain to everybody how you see it, because it makes so much sense.
So the way that he wants to clean up, the health industry is by having stricter controls over the pharmaceutical industry, having more insight over the pharmaceutical industry, and, encouraging schools to stop giving kids processed foods. Well, that's good, but you're going to clean up the pharmaceutical industry. So then what's going to happen if the only thing that can treat a disease is still going to be a drug? The only medicine that people have access to is still just going to be MD-directed medicine. The solution to the chronic health epidemic is the medical monopoly. It's the medical doctors. The chronic disease epidemic happened while the medical doctors have been in exclusive control over the development and the delivery of medicine. It happened on their watch. It's their fault because their therapeutics are insufficient to the cause. The only thing that's going to fix the chronic disease epidemic is a free medical market. That's it. But that's not in the interests of the pharmaceutical industry, so that's never going to happen. And I say this, it's an unpopular sentiment, but nonetheless, I'll say it. If you in the listening audience are waiting for all of this medical nonsense to change from the top down, you're waiting in vain. I do not believe that that's going to happen. I do not believe it's going to happen in our lifetime. It might happen, but I don't think it's going to happen in our lifetime. The pharmaceutical industry has way too much power, way too much control, and they are not going to go silently into the night. So it would behoove you, if you've popped out of the medical matrix and you finally, thank God, seen the shortcomings of the conventional medical method, right? And you're looking for something else because I still have asthma, I still have migraine headaches, I still have a weight problem, I still have type 2 diabetes, I still can't sleep through the night, my energy tanks every day at 11 a.m., I don't know what to do. Well, let me tell you what to do. Go to my website, become a subscriber. I'll walk you right through what to do, right? And I'll educate you about alternatives that you've never heard of that actually work. For goodness sakes, we need a free medical market is the solution. And, if by some genie in the bottle magic, Simone, we all woke up tomorrow and there were just as many naturopathic doctors as MDs, we all had hospital privileges in all 50 states. Insurance paid for everything. Universities did 50% of their research on holistic therapeutics and 50% of their research on allopathic therapeutics. If that actually happened in 2 years, medical doctors who were not surgeons or, trauma care docs would be out of a job. Because in a free medical market, people gravitate towards what works.
That's right.
Holistic medicine works for chronic disease. And it's the best kept secret in the 21st century.
This is the single biggest reason why my social media grew, is because I started sharing only and exclusively holistic approaches, and I featured holistic and naturopathic doctors and approaches to health, even to question their doctors. And another big one was statins, chemotherapy, which was the Real of You, where you talked about chemotherapy.
Yeah.
But what I notice is that a lot of the people actually are afraid and they are coerced, downright coerced. For example, one of the things
Yeah.
that I posted was about mammography, and I said,
Yeah.
I do not advise anybody do a mammogram because they are radiating your breasts, and that will lead to cancer. It's a carcinogenic thing. And I said one of the things you could do is get an ultrasound. And I was astonished to hear that nobody can get an ultrasound unless they get a mammogram first.
Yeah. If your insurance is going to pay for it, you can find sometimes, like you could find a chiropractor, um, or maybe even a nurse practitioner who was sympathetic to your plight, because there are imaging centers all around the country right now, and like little strip malls, there'll be an imaging center, right, where they do MRIs or CTs or X-rays.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go there and get the ultrasound done. You have to pay cash for it though, because your insurance isn't going to pay for it. So there are workarounds for that. But you're absolutely correct. This again is one of the ramifications of the medical monopoly. And because it's difficult for people to do anything other than the mainstream. For example, I'm a licensed naturopathic physician. Here's what I had to do. I had to do 4 years pre-med. I did that at the University of Massachusetts. Had to do 4 years of naturopathic medical school at a fully accredited by the United States Department of Education medical school. Then I had to graduate. Then I had to pass national boards. Then I had to pass state boards. Then I had to get a license to practice naturopathic medicine. Then I had to secure 25 hours of continuing education credit every year. And even though I did all of that, my profession is only licensed and regulated in 24 states in the United States. And it's a felony to practice naturopathic medicine in the state of Texas, or Tennessee, rather.
What?
Yeah.
Tennessee does not allow
It's a
naturopathic
felony.
doctors. It's a felony.
It's a felony to practice naturopathic medicine in the state of
God.
Tennessee. It's a misdemeanor to practice it in Florida. So what does this mean? That the laws of science or nature change if you cross a state line? Is that what that means? No. It means it's a monopoly. They don't want the
Wow.
competition. Period. I told you it's as bad as you think it is.
I had no idea that it was, I mean, to make it a crime, a felony that you are trying to help people get healthier.
Yeah, and with all the education and all the credentialing, right? United States Department of Education certified. I have friends that work at the National Institute for Health as naturopathic physicians. But in Tennessee, it's a felony. And in 26 states in the United States, it's illegal, right? So there's no insurance, no hospitals, nothing. It's like you're flying under the radar and trying not to get thrown in jail. It's
So,
nuts.
so looking ahead, especially given what you said, and I know we're on the precipice of so many changes right now, especially because in the United States, whenever an election happens, the world is sitting on the edge of its seat and waiting to see what the outcome is going to be. And then there's a ripple effect, and every other country in the world gets affected by what happens in the United States. It is what it is. I love the United States. I lived in Florida for a whole bunch of time and I loved it. Sarasota is still the greatest place to live, in my opinion. But I wanted to know, so looking ahead, especially given the fact that you guys have your election coming up, what do you see as the future of naturopathic oncology, especially so for specifically to cancer? And how do you believe that the field is going to evolve in the treatment of it? Do you see
It's
change coming?
no, it's dead in the water. It's never going to happen.
Wow,
It's not going to happen, which is a tragedy,
it
um,
is.
because, right, there are doctors who are extremely successful in treating cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, here's another fun fact to know and tell. In the last 10 years, there have been 99 doctors in the United States practicing alternative cancer treatments who have died mysteriously. 99. They're just, you know, they're found floating in the river with a shotgun blast to their chest, and then it's ruled a suicide.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's never going to change. And I didn't really want to talk about this, but I guess I will because honesty is the best policy. So I need a drink. So my profession, right? I graduated naturopathic medical school in 1991.
Mm-hmm.
Licensed since 1992, right? Long time. Right around the turn of the century, the schools that teach naturopathic medicine, there's 4 of them in the United States right now and 1 in Canada, for reasons which I will not bore your audience with, started listing away from teaching pure naturopathic therapeutics into this weird hybridized system of medicine, which I refer to as green allopathic medicine. So the naturopathic students that are coming up now, and you know, in the last 20 years, are taught to use pharmaceuticals first and then use naturopathic therapeutics to clean up the mess that the pharmaceuticals make. And that's a dramatic oversimplification. But the naturopathic profession has split into 2. With the traditional naturopathic doctors who are actually practicing naturopathic medicine the way that it was meant to be practiced, and this weird hybridized mashup bullshit, whatever it is.
What do they call themselves?
Naturopathic doctors.
They still call themselves naturopathic doctors?
Yeah,
Oh,
there,
wow. How
there's
do
a
you
giant split in the profession. I mean, it's almost come to blows.
how
So,
do you as a patient make the distinction so that you could actually go to an actual naturopathic doctor?
okay, so here's how you do it.
Just so that
So,
the audience, if they're going to look for a doctor that practices naturopathy, you want them to have the real deal.
okay, good. So there is years ago, I have a colleague who was he was the the he was a political mover and shaker in the development of naturopathic medicine. His name was Jim Sensenig, and he had a very active practice in Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the first president of the American Association of Naturopathic Physicians when they were actually practicing naturopathic medicine. And right around the turn of the century, recent graduates of the naturopathic medical school started showing up at his clinic in Connecticut. And they said, Dr. Sensenig, we just graduated from naturopathic medical school, but we have no idea how to practice naturopathic medicine. Will you teach us? So he started teaching them at his clinic what to do. And that morphed into the formation of a nonprofit organization called the Naturopathic Medicine Institute. It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization. It's platinum rated nonprofit in the United States. And the members of the Naturopathic Medicine Institute exists in order to keep the flame of authentic naturopathic medicine alive and to teach naturopathic doctors how to practice naturopathic medicine. So if someone in your listening audience is actively looking for a naturopathic doctor, then go to the website of the Naturopathic Medicine Institute, because they have an inventory of doctors who are members of this institute. And the only way you can become a member of this institute is if you complete coursework and prove that you're actually doing authentic naturopathic medicine. So this is the resource that people need to go to in order to find
Amazing.
naturopathic doctors who actually practice naturopathic medicine.
And just for you guys all out there, Dr. Glidden is actually a board member of the Naturopathic Medicine Institute. So you know it's the real deal if he sits on it.
Yeah, so it is the real deal.
Yes.
And so that's how we do it.
Okay, I want to do a real life example that demonstrates the effectiveness of naturopathic care and
Okay.
to inspire hope in the audience. So I'm wondering if you can share a quick success story from your practice that illustrates the power of naturopathic approach to cancer treatment so that people can learn lessons and recognize that people actually experience true healing by this approach.
Okay. So 2.5 years ago, I had a patient with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma,
Mhm.
and he'd done chemotherapy. I think he did radiation, and to put it into remission. And then it started to come back, and he was sick, and he knew that it wasn't going to work because he had a clue. So he came to see me for treatment. And over took us 2 years, but I changed his diet. I got him on board with a really good medical nutrition program.
Mhm.
And I started a course of homeopathic treatment, the same stuff that this guy does in India, who has this remarkable success rate. And he's cancer free. He's not in remission. He's cancer free. He doesn't have it anymore. Now, I think we're coming up on 6 years now. Um, I can't remember actually the exact time frame, but I spoke to him 6 months ago, and he's cancer free, and he's healthy, and he's everything else is great, right? His mood is good, his energy is good, his weight is good, he's sleeping through the night. He doesn't have high blood pressure, he doesn't have anything else. He's not on any prescription meds, and he's healthy. And he completely recovered his health. There's no more cancer in his body. And we did that by supporting and promoting his body's ability to fix itself. We did that with dietary change, with medical nutrition, and with homeopathy.
Okay.
And I had years ago, I had a breast cancer patient. She was the first cancer patient I ever treated. It was years ago. Was a 62-year-old female of Scandinavian origin who had breast cancer. And her breast cancer was caused by Premarin, which was
Oh,
a drug that was all the rage in the 60s and the 70s in the United States. It was a hormone, which, get this, and I'm not making this up, Premarin was a drug that was made from 2 parts horse hormone and 1 part human hormone. That's why it was called Premarin, because the horse hormone was extracted from the urine of pregnant mares. Oh, that's a good idea. Let's take 2 parts horse hormone and 1 part human hormone and inject that into the body of women. Oh, and by the way, it was for a non-medical condition, menopause. This drug was given to women for menopause, which is not a disease. It's a time of life. Okay, so Premarin. Only problem with Premarin, a major side effect, is breast cancer. Well, she didn't know this. I knew this. So we
did the
took her off.
doctor that prescribed it to her know this?
No. Or if he did, he didn't give a shit.
Oh my God.
So I took her off of the Premarin. I gave her, the medical nutrition thing and the dietary change. And I think in 6 months, the lump went away, completely went away. But there's a funny story, because after her breasts completely cleared up, she went back in for a follow-up. She did a mammogram, a follow-up mammogram, and the breasts were completely clear, right? And she told me a funny story. She said that the doctor came in to the room where she was and was yelling at the nurse because the nurse had given him the wrong mammograms, because it couldn't possibly be this patient's mammogram because the breasts were completely cleared.
He was
Couldn't
expecting
possibly
that
be hers.
he was expecting that the cancer had progressed.
Yeah, but it was completely gone.
What about Dr. Glidden 4? Because I get this question as well. What about virus-related cancers like HPV, which is related to the
Okay.
cervical cancer?
Okay. So I told you I was going to make your head explode, right? Okay. So everybody needs to buy this book.
Okay.
It's called Virus Mania. Virus Mania.
Who's
And
it by?
the authors are Engelbrecht and Conline. Engelbrecht and Conline. Kohnlein. Conline and Engelbrecht. Engelbrecht. Virus Mania by Engelbrecht and Conline. So here's the cliff notes.
Yes, please.
In order to prove that an illness is caused by a microorganism, like a bacteria or a virus, there's a set of steps that have to be accomplished, experimental steps. It's called Koch's postulates. You have to isolate the microbe. You have to multiply the microbe. You have to give the microbe to, test animals, and there has to be a control group that didn't get the microbe. And you have to document that the animals that were given the microbe got sick. You have to document that. And that the animals that were not given the microbe did not get sick, right? It's just a series of steps that you have to do to prove, well, this illness is caused by this microorganism. Okay. That was never done for HPV. It was never done for polio. It was never done for HIV. It was never done for H5N1 avian flu. It was never done. It was never done for SARS-CoV-2.
So how do they figure that? I think that there's two variations that they check for. I will buy it. I will definitely buy it.
It's reality by consensus, and it's bad research, which is allowed to be published.
So they just take, for example, a woman, they test her for, let's say that if she has that specific strain, if you will.
They can't test for it. It's like it's reality by consensus. It's like they're testing for these things with the PCR test. And the PCR test was never meant to be a diagnostic test.
Okay.
Because in order for a PCR test to work, you have to tell the test what to look for. You have to say, oh, you have to look for this genetic marker, this genetic marker, this genetic marker, and this genetic marker, and this genetic marker. Here's what I want this test to look for. Okay? So how do they know what the genetic markers are for a completely new illness? How do they know? Because they haven't isolated the virus. So how do they know what to tell the PCR test to look for? Because they haven't isolated the virus. Well, how do they know what to tell the PCR test to look for? It's research shenanigans is the moral to this story. The polio virus was never proven to exist, period. I'm just going to say it out loud. It might exist, but it was never proven to exist. And it is much more likely that the polio epidemic was caused by DDT, had nothing to do with the virus, that the virus was just manufactured bullshit that then became reality by consensus in the wonderful world of monopolized medicine.
So in that regard, then with the cervical cancer, then the HPV could be exactly the same. They could just take anything and say, you got cervical cancer because of this, or you've got cervical dysplasia, or you have abnormal cells and they just pull something out of a hat.
100%. And then 100 doctors agree, and now it's reality. So we need a free medical market, right? So there are a number of very interesting theories regarding the genesis of cancer, right? One of the theories is called the false placenta theory. And it goes like this, that every cell in the body has an electrical potential, right? It's like every cell is like a little tiny battery in the human body. And healthy cells have an electrical charge, which is, I'm just making these numbers up. These are not accurate numbers. I'm just making these numbers up, for example, okay? So in order for a cell to be healthy, it has to have an electrical charge of above 10, okay? Cells that have electrical charges below 10 become cancerous. Why do they become cancerous? because when a cell's electrical charge drops below a certain threshold, it no longer has the ability to process oxygen. It can't do it. So the theory is that the body has wisdom, right? The body knows the cell needs oxygen. The body knows the cell can't make oxygen because its voltage is too low. So the cell, the body in its wisdom creates a tumor, and every single tumor that's ever existed in anybody's body is loaded with blood vessels. That's why the surgical removal of tumors is very difficult, because the patient will bleed to death frequently. So why is it the tumor so rich in blood? Well, the idea is that the body was understood that this particular part of the body was having a trouble with oxygen. So the body was gonna create create a cell, create not a cell, but create a mass of cells, the intention of which was to bring more oxygen to that part of the body. The same way that a placenta delivers oxygen to the forming baby. It's called the false placenta theory, and it's driven by cells that have lost their electrical potential. That's a very interesting theory. There's another theory called the New German Medicine, which states that the majority of cancers are caused by psychological stress. Period. Extreme psychological stress, like you watch your son get run over by an automobile. Extreme psychological stress. Something bad happened to the cancer patient a few months before the cancer was diagnosed, and that is an emotional trauma. That's an interesting theory. There's another theory, which was espoused by Hildy Clark, who I knew, that says that all cancer is caused by parasites.
Yes.
Well, okay. But then that begs the question, well, which came first? The tumor or the parasite? Is the parasite there because the tumor is there and the parasite found a place to breed and live inside the tumor, or did the parasite cause the tumor? Which is it? These are the questions that need to be answered. And if we had a free medical market, oh, by the way, the guy that discovered the electrical threshold thing of the cell, he got the Nobel Prize, like in the early 1900s.
Was that Dr. Warburg?
I think it might be. I forget his name. Forgive me. But, right, so my point is that if I was Elon Musk and had $1 billion to throw at medical research, we could cure cancer in 5 years because there are doctors that are already doing it. You know, this guy, Joe Tippins, right? His body was riddled with cancer. Doctors gave him 6 months to live. He took a worm medicine that was normally given to dogs, a dewormer, and his cancer went away. Complete recovery. No more cancer in his body anywhere. Complete recovery. So that was a parasite thing. So you would think that, you know, every oncologist in the world would want to talk to Tippins and generate money, and let's do research on this, ladies and gentlemen, because, oh my God, he was going to die and now there's no more cancer and I can't believe it. Oh, we need to figure this out. But no, it's not going to happen.
Of course not.
Because we don't have a free medical market. So from my limited experience with cancer patients, I think I have 3 successful treatments and 3 unsuccessful treatments. It doesn't work all the time. And it doesn't help that most people who end up in a naturopathic doctor's office who have cancer, they're at the end of their rope. It's not at the beginning of the diagnosis, it's at the end of the diagnosis when their bodies have been wiped out by chemo and radiation and they're just a mess. And now, in addition to helping figure out what caused the cancer and fix it, we got to clean up the mess of all that crap. It's not easy.
When I did my internship at a cancer clinic here in Canada, I remember by day 3, we would know, I would know because I was obviously a newbie. I would know who was going to make it and who wasn't. And there were many who were coming after being butchered by the allopathic community.
Mhm.
They had gone through so much that they had just given up because they were in pain, they were exhausted, they had lost their hair, they had no will to live, and they just had given up. And then there were others who you could see that there was a lot of fight in them. They, I think people don't recognize how much of the healing is driven by them. And they really have to push forward. And a lot of them give up because they have put the power into the hands of the allopathic community. And when they see that, well, this made me feel worse. So that means that this cancer cannot be cured. So I'm just going to die. And they give up.
Yeah, you are 100% correct. The mental attitude has a lot to do with recovery from any
Mhm.
illness, quite frankly.
Actually, yes, absolutely.
There are two
But
types of medicine. Well, there's three types of medicine which I have seen produce miraculous cures. One of them is hands-on healing.
yes.
And I have a colleague that codified that. He has a book. He figured it out. I got his book here somewhere. Um, it's here somewhere, I promise. Anyway, his name is Alfonso Monzo, and you should interview him. He
Okay.
he's the guy that was rated by the FDA, but he developed a book. He developed a technique of hands-on healing that's extremely effective. And if everybody in the world had his book, everything would be very different. Hands-on healing is an extremely effective method of healing. Number two is homeopathy. Homeopathic medicine is an extremely effective system of medicine. However, like naturopathic medicine, over the last 200 years, homeopathic medicine has become extremely diluted. And there aren't that many effective homeopathic practitioners in the world anymore. But I know who they are. Um, and number three is medical nutrition, right? Just with a simple diet change and filling the body's nutritional tank up, we have an 87% success rate in chronic disease. 87%. The pharmaceutical industry would kill for numbers like that.
Yes.
But so these are the things that people need to know about. I mean, there is no, remember, we don't treat disease, we treat people. And there are no incurable diseases, but there are incurable people.
Ah,
So this is not guaranteed. Oh, you've got migraine headaches, you do this and it's guaranteed to go away. It's not like that. There's a high likelihood that you'll get on the other side of it, but it's not guaranteed. No guarantees. I mean, this guy, he had for instance, with a breast cancer, he had an 86% success rate. That means 14% of the patients died. So it's like that, right? What do we need to do, man? Well, you need to understand what the medical doctors are good at and what the medical doctors are bad at. And you need to understand what the naturopathic doctors and the homeopathic doctors and the Ayurvedic doctors and the acupuncturists are good at and what they're bad at. You need to take responsibility for your own health, educate yourself about this stuff, and get going with the program. Because if you don't, as time goes by and your body runs out of the essential nutrients, something will break. It has to. And then you're
absolutely.
in and then you're in trouble. So
Absolutely, it will. And one of the things that I always tell people, and most of the time I have to do a video on this to post on my socials, but a lot of times people send me direct messages, so I respond a lot there, uh, just to make it sort of give it a personal touch. But a lot of people are so obsessed with prodding and testing and finding things that will get them to spiral out of control in fear. When I always tell them the best thing you can do, even if you find out that you have cancer or whatever label they'll put on it, because like you said in the beginning of the show, doctors have all kinds of names for things. you should still, even if you were to get that diagnosis, you still want to heal. So you should put all of your attention and focus on healing all the time, not only when you get a diagnosis.
Yeah, that's 100% correct.
Because
And
they get so reactive, but yet they spend an inordinate amount of time looking for things. And
well, that's
doctors are more than happy to do that for them.
yeah, see, that's because of the medical monopoly. And I mean, let's be honest, Simone, right? That very few people even know how to pronounce naturopathic or naturopathy, let alone know what a naturopathic doctor is, or what their training is, or what they can do. They just don't know about it. They don't know what homeopathy is. They don't know. They don't really know what applied medical nutrition is. They don't know. They have no idea. And they should. I mean, if people were taught the stuff that's on my website in high school, it, it would be a completely different situation. There's a guy that I play golf with. He's 75 years old. He's from Italy. And a year ago, he goes in for an annual checkup, and they told him that his kidneys were failing. Okay, he's going to need dialysis in like 6 months. So just make sure you get ready for all that, right? So he talked to me. He said, "Hey, anything you can do to help my kidneys?" I said, "Yeah, man, you need to stop eating these foods. You need to take these nutritional supplements." He said, "Yeah, I'm not going to do that." He said, "I'm Italian. I'm not going to stop eating bread. I'm not going to stop drinking wine. I'm not going to do it. And, I can't really, I'm not going to do the supplements. I know, I'm telling you right now, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. Is there anything else I can do?" So I went home. I called a couple of my colleagues. We did some troubleshooting, and I came up with a program that I thought he could do. So it was 3 botanical medicines that he took. He took 10 drops of each one twice a day for 6 months. It was a botanical medicine, 3 different botanical medicines, plant medicines, 10 drops of each one twice a day for 6 months. He just had his next checkup, and his kidney function is like it was when he was 30 years old. It completely fixed itself. It
I love
completely
stories
fixed
like
itself.
this.
And he didn't do the whole program. So I'm telling you, man, there's another patient that we have. She just wrote a book. I forget the title of it. It's called, I'll think of it in a minute. She had like 10 different diagnoses.
Oh,
Her heart was enlarged. She had atrial fibrillation. She had congestive heart failure. She had some type of kidney thing. I forget what it was. And all of it went away. All of it went away. And it's documented. She went, here's a funny story, right? So she had a quadruple bypass surgery before she knew me, because she had, a widowmaker, atherosclerotic heart. All right. That was one of the things she had. So they put, what did they put in her chest? When they did the open heart surgery, right? They closed her heart up and they put titanium staples in her chest, because that's what they do. Okay. So she starts working with me and doing all the stuff for everything that she has, including helping her heart and helping her kidneys and whatever else it was. I can't remember. It was a long list. And she gets better, 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 and she gets better. And then she wakes up one night, she's in massive pain in her chest. She thinks she's having a heart attack. So she goes to the emergency room. And that's a whole nother story about how she was mishandled in the emergency room. But long story short, they convinced her to do an angiogram of her heart, right? Where they put a little camera up into your heart and they inject dye in it and they look to see how your heart's doing. So they do the test. And the test comes back completely normal. Her heart's a normal size. There was a dead space in her heart before. I'd never even heard of that, but that's gone. The arteries are clear. There's no pathological problem with her heart at all. And the doctor came in and said, look, we need to run that test again because the machine must be calibrated incorrectly because there's no way you could have recovered from all these illnesses. And it turns out that that what was causing her pain that made her go to the emergency room, the body was pushing out the titanium staples.
Oh, wow.
I'm telling you, Simone, you wouldn't believe the things I've seen people recover from.
Oh, on that note, please tell the audience where they can find you, your website, so that they can take advantage of the courses that you have. Of course, I've gone with a fine tooth comb through your website, but you have a membership. Of course, I'll let you speak to it. You have a membership. You have courses. You have free um, resources that people can take advantage of. Your books. So you have authored 3 books, one of which you said you sort of re-brought back to the market, and then the other that Amazon banned you.
Yeah, go figure.
You're right when Amazon goes out of its way to ban
I
you.
guess so. I guess it's my badge of honor, right? So the
Yes.
website is leavebigpharmabehind.com. It's got a nice ring to it.
Leave Big Pharma behind.
Leavebigpharmabehind.com. And are we live right now?
No, this is recorded.
Okay. When will this be broadcast?
Probably next week, Monday.
Okay. So I've had a sale for my subscription stuff for the month of August. And it
Okay.
was supposed to end tomorrow night at midnight.
Okay.
But for your listening audience, I'm going to extend the sale
Mm-hmm.
until, let me pull my calendar up just so I'm not misleading anybody.
Monday, I believe, is September the 2nd.
Okay, so I will extend this sale until September the 4th at midnight.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So for you guys, all of you listening,
So in order and it's a 50% discount on my subscription, 50%.
half the
And
price.
it's if you get it, you're locked in. So it's a month-to-month subscription or a yearly subscription. If you secure the 50% discount, you have the 50% discount forever as long as you maintain the subscription. So here's a coupon code that you have to type in when you check out, you purchase a subscription and you type in a little coupon code, you get 50% off. The coupon code is healthy, wealthy, wise.
Healthy, wealthy, wise.
No spaces. And the first letter of each word is capitalized. So it's capital H, capital W, healthy, wealthy, wise. Here it is. I'll pull it right across. Healthy, wealthy, wise, right there. That's a 50% discount on a subscription to my stuff. And look, folks, it also, if you have economic stress and you can't even, at the 50% discount, it's still too expensive. There's an email, you call my office or you send an email to my office manager and we'll work something out for you. I'm not going to leave anybody behind. These are
Excellent.
difficult financial times. If you honestly and truly can't afford it, you let us know that and we'll figure it out with you. Okay. So I'm not going to leave anybody behind here because of the price and I have to make a living. So, right. Healthy, wealthy, wise, capital H, capital W, no spaces. You'll get a 50% discount.
That's
And
very generous. Thank you so much, Dr. Glidden. I'm so happy that I'm able to bring this to the audience and for everybody to take advantage of. I appreciate it greatly. Thank you for your wisdom, for everything that you shared with us, and for educating everybody on what they can do and how many things are available to them to heal themselves if they apply the proper approaches rather than spinning their wheels in the allopathic community and then coming to people like you to fix them after they've been butchered and harmed. So hopefully we could have another conversation. I would love to speak to other diseases other than cancer so that we could give hope
Yeah.
to other people in the audience.
Oh, I'm happy to help. I mean, I'll come on as much as you want. If I hope you don't never get tired of me, but yeah,
No,
just get in touch. Whenever you need me to come back, I'll come back.
Dr. Glidden, you have no idea how much my audience loves you. So you will definitely come back. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you. And you guys stay tuned for the next episode and for when Dr. Glidden comes back.
Thanks, Simone. I'll see you in the future.
Thank you.